All right, day number 7 of my 40-day water fast 2023. And so it's been, officially made it to the 1 week mark. And so I'm feeling pretty good overall, I would say. A couple little waves of little slight passes of inkling of could I be slightly feeling hungry? Just drink some water and then it feels fine. That kind of stuff is kind of passing along. But yeah, so then, um, well, I guess let me just jump straight into some of the details. So, yeah, so let's see. So, it's kind of subtle differences, but again, it's definitely seeming like it's a bit more lighter pinkish color tones. There's still a little scaly looking, but it's it's definitely, like I said, compared to when I started, it definitely looks like it's definitely healing. It's so yeah, so probably back to what I was saying originally, giving an estimate that I'm assuming I won't actually see these really recede until about the 2 week mark. So at the 1 week mark now, it's in the process, but I'd say, yeah, I'd say probably another good solid week of this healing before really see these really receding and fading away. So, but still a little itchy on the bigger one here. Right one, not so itchy. Feels pretty good overall. Yeah, so I know it looks terrible, but like I said, it's good to know that progress is happening as opposed to it just being staying stuck this way. I'd basically been living with this for, when I say 6 months, maybe it's 8 months. I don't know. It's been middle of last year at least. So I've been living with this. It started coming up and then it just came, and then it started a little smaller, and then just little by little just started growing, and this one started, suddenly one day I noticed it's like this, and then no, it's like and then that kind of thing. So I'm glad that I'm finally dealing with it. I'd been meaning to do some fast like this for a while. So basically been months going by. Each month I'm thinking, okay, this is the month I might do it, but then didn't, and then so now I'm finally doing it. So yeah, so it feels really good to finally deal with something so fundamental and personal as my own health of my body that I had been effectively been ignoring and just putting it off till later, kept putting other things in higher priority, and now I'm just I can't do that anymore. So I think that's part of why someone would do this, is that when they just say, you know what, eh, my health and my healing are I'm putting as priority one, and if there's a conflict, then I have to side with my healing and put off the other thing, even if it's you've been conditioned that these other things are important. Maybe they're not as important as you thought. I think that's what that's what I'm realizing. That a lot of things that people are coming to, oh, you need to do this job, you need to do this job, you need to, drop everything and go to. They're probably not. They're urgent in somebody's head. They're not intrinsically urgent. It's unless they're dying unless someone's like actively about to die kind of thing, or a fire is burning down a house, it's not urgent. That's the good rule of thumb. Are they dying? Is things on fire? Are things blowing up? Literally, not figuratively. I mean, like, if that's not happening, then it's not that urgent. That's what I've just finally come to accept. Well, let's go in the other numbers. So yeah, not as big of a drop today, which it's from my experience. There's like usually a staggered downward trend. Like overall, the trend is going down, 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 but there's periodic little plateaus typically where it just kind of plateaus for a day or so and then resumes its dropping. So I was already prepared for that. So far, actually, to have every single day in a row where it's drop by pretty significant amounts, that was actually, I was like, oh, wow, interesting. Oftentimes I don't have it quite drop at that fast of a rate. So yeah, so today I was at 205.2, which was exactly 1 pound less than yesterday's 206.2. So, about, it's only it's 1 pound versus, closer to like 2 pounds, around 2 pounds or so on all the other days. But that's fine. Like I said, I've had it happen before where there's like minimal loss for a few days in a row, and then all of a sudden there's like a 3 or 4 pound drop in one day. So stuff like that can happen. So, yeah, at least for my body, I'd noticed that when I average all the days out in the past, when I'd done a fast, it was averaged out to like 1.2 pounds per day. So right now, most of the days have been 2 pounds per day. So, but then again, there's been some changes that I've had, also like emotional changes, a lot of emotional cathartic release. I've done different activities, therapeutic activities. So part of me is kind of hypothesizing that part of my weight gain, holding on to weight, is in part influenced by some old emotional holding on of other traumas, and that it like the holding on to the fat was like a protective mechanism. And so that's my hypothesis now, that I wonder if overall the speed at which I drop the fat will be higher than the 1.2 pounds per day on average, because I feel like something fundamentally has shifted, and that I feel like at an emotional level ready to let go of the fat. Whereas before it was kind of like, it was more of like a cosmetic and vanity. It was more of just a vanity type thing. But there wasn't like a feeling of like I deserve it or something. Whereas now I'm just like, no, this is not what I want to be anymore, and I deserve to have a fit, appropriate weight body, and not be carrying around all this extra weight. It just feels like, why the hell am I carrying this? I don't like this anymore. Whereas before it was just kind of like, this is the norm. So, let's see the other numbers. So this morning, like I said, 205.2 for the weight. pH was kind of hard to tell, but it looked like it was inching closer to more like a 6, so I just put 6. So 6, still acidic, but inching closer to, the neutral, which the optimal neutral is 7.25, which is the same pH as human blood. So that's the optimal. If you can get to that, then you're like golden. Um, then ketones seem to rise also a bit higher than 4. So I didn't quite look like it was all the way into 6. So I just I jotted down 5. So definitely it's in the high, it's starting to get above just optimal range, but starting to get in a bit like high range, which again, given that I'm doing this long water fast and there's nothing but ketone bodies at work, that I would assume that it may go up on the very high level if that is the primary fuel going to my brain at this point. That I would definitely be on the high scale of that. So, and as much as I had told myself I'd go to bed early, last night I ended up going to bed even later than the last 2 nights. I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff going on that I had. I forget all the things I was doing, but yeah, I also got caught up with finishing watching a couple little videos and messing around with stuff. So I ended up not falling asleep until like 2 a.m., which is definitely not recommended for doing this. It's much better to get more sleep than less sleep when going through this right now. But I mean, overall, energy-wise, I feel okay. I feel like I probably could have used maybe 1 more hour of sleep, kind of thing. So, and given the weight loss, of only 1 pound, going to bed at 2 instead of going to bed at like by midnight percent, for example, could have eased, it would definitely probably contributed to only dropping by 1 pound. So the other thing that I found that interferes with the weight loss while doing a water fast is drinking anything but water. Like having an occasional, just kind of break it up a little bit to have like carbonated water where it's not, totally unsweetened. And it's like, my favorite is like Waterloo. Waterloo seltzer, and there's no sugar in it, no artificial sweeteners or anything like that. But I did notice that if I would drink 1 or 2 cans of those one day, I typically would then not lose any weight the next day. When I weigh myself the next day, there's no weight change between days. So that, and also I experimented with doing some like vinegars, like an apple cider vinegar or, things like that, because I was thinking, okay, let me see how it's better for my stomach, and it kind of aids in other detoxification and stuff like that. But again, I just found that it's too easy to then start like taking a little bit more and a little bit more, because then it's something different than just water, so that you want to do a little more of it. And so the last time I tried that, ultimately it wound up with just totally derailing my water fast, because I got more and more caught up with it, and the next thing I know, it started triggering more hunger response, because it was like, it's basically no calories, but it's like on the verge of starting to have a little bit of calories kind of thing. And I think it's just like the body starts responding to it as like, oh, it's like giving it hope that there's food. I don't know, something like that. It's one way of putting it. But it, like trying to do a bunch of substitute things on the water fast that are like not quite just a water fast. It just, in my experience, it doesn't derail it maybe on the first time you do it, but then it tempts you to, it keeps tempting you to like push the line a little farther, until, finally, next thing you know, you're just totally caving in. So from those experiences, I've just concluded that just gotta stick with just the water. Don't even give yourself carbonated water during the water fast, because it's just too easy to start justifying adding a little bit more, doing just a little bit more, one more can of that, or just a little splash of some vinegar. Let me just do a little, because it's just like incremental. So just be like, nope, this is all I'm doing. It's filtered water with these electrolytes. Either you just do the pure filtered water if you're doing like a shorter fast, but for a really extend fast, then adding the electrolytes, I think, are pretty essential, especially doing solo, because you run the risk of electrolyte depletion, which the onset of it could happen, pretty rapidly when it happens. It's like a cliff. It's like you're fine, and then you're not. So yeah, it's not like a super gradual thing. So like I said, if you're doing pure water fast, long water fast, then it should be supervised if you're doing just pure water. But if you're not doing supervised, then definitely be adding the electrolyte solutions, or doing like a kind of the formula, like Cole from Snake Diet, where just putting directly in the salts. I mean, the electrolyte solution has been super convenient for me, because I'm drinking like three bottles of water per day, and then just fill up the water, squirt it in, good to go. But it may be good to just like intermix it a little bit. I might intermix it a little bit. But so far it's been good. And let's see. Yeah, woke up at 9:20 this morning to go to some work today at 10 a.m., which then turned out to the guy, he had a bunch of other stuff came up. So I ended up just working solo today for a few hours, finished early. And yeah, it was actually a pretty light day, very minimal exertion. Definitely was lighter work today than yesterday. And felt pretty good. There definitely was like a little bit of a lull, at around 3:00. I was like, I feel like I'm done for now. And so I just took off. And then I had an NLP study group to practice. But in this case, I ended up being the subject. I would say one thing I notice about when being in this fasted state is that there's definitely overall, and again, this is not necessarily universal, but I've experienced it multiple times now, so it seems to be, I think it's definitely one of the common, or at least very probable states you can drop into when you're in this fasted state, especially, you're going into a week and longer kind of thing, is that you enter into this, like, your energy, you have like this low energy, but it's like a steady state energy, because now you're just getting a drip feed from burning fat, creating ketone bodies, and it's like a continuous flow of energy. It's not a lot of energy, but it's consistent, as opposed to like big spikes coming in when you're eating a bunch of food, and then maybe some little lull, and then a food coma, and all those different things that happen when you're in the normal eating world. But when you have decided to temporarily leave the eating, the eating realm, the world, or the realm of eating, to enter into this temporary other realm, you notice that you no longer have these great spikes. It's like level across, and then a sudden lull, drop, take a little nap, boom, you're right back, and it feels good again. At least that's that's one of the possible experiences you can have. And the other thing I notice is that when you are in this steady state level, more grounded, yet, it's like you're detached from the normal realm of eating. You're detached from it, but yet you're simultaneously more grounded. You have a more grounded evenness feeling to your system. That I found that doing, like doing therapy work, like receiving therapy work, I would say, receiving therapy work, it can be very optimal in that state, because you're not being influenced by a lot of other substances, all the different all the different sugars and different things that are really impact your mood. When you don't have all that stuff operating and operating in your system and impacting your highs and lows and everything, and instead you just have a much more like kind of, like I said, steady state, mellow state. There's also, I find that like I said, at least for myself, it kind of encourages a bit more of like a tranquil openness feeling, that when doing change work and, like I've been doing, just receiving neurolinguistic programming type change work. But it's not traditional. It's like this other transformational type of neurolinguistic programming. It feels like things move easy. Things, like, I feel even more open. I feel more willing. There's like a more of a innate feeling and willingness to open up and to go along with these, the feelings and the emotions that are all being brought up and triggered, and different deep emotions being processed. It like I feel more, there's like more natural desire and willingness, and just physiologically, it's like physiologically, psychically, emotionally, spiritually, it feels like more optimal to just to work on this. And I think part of that is, in addition to the previous things I said about the food kind of affecting your emotions, that is one of the most common things people do, is like when they're feeling uncomfortable dealing with some processing, some emotion thing, the first thing they want to do is like reach to go grab a snack or something. There's a lot of people, or some people will be like, oh, I gotta reach and grab a drink, or grab something to consume and stick it in their body to help them cope with processing their deep inner emotions. And when you're in this state where you it's like it's not accessible now, those options are off the table for the time being. And so when you're in this state, you're processing your emotions, you don't have the option of grabbing some comfort food. You don't have the option of grabbing some drink, some a drink of alcohol. You don't have the option of taking maybe some other type of drug or substance that you might take. It's like all those things are off the table when you're on this long water fast journey. And so it almost forces you to surrender, but it puts you in a more symbiotic relationship with the the emotional state of surrender. That just becomes more, it just feels like more natural and more easy to go into a state of just surrendering to whatever is happening, processing something intense. It just feels more like there's a more of a willingness, a deep down feeling of just more willingness. And like, some people might say, being more coachable kind of thing. Just there's less resistance. That's what it is. It's, you feel less resistance to delving deep, because I believe it does create, I mean, for thousands and thousands of years, the great religions of the world, they all recommend doing different forms of fasting in order to support, the religious practice, to have to support your own religious practice. And so I see that, and I just, from directly being in it, I see that it definitely connects you more with, whatever you'd describe as like your spirit, and makes you more open to feeling and being with whatever is coming up. Because it's like, now I'm finding doing this water fast is more than just a purification of biological things in my physical body, but it also doubles as like a purification of, your mind and, your mind and heart and soul kind of experience at the same time. So that's part of why it's like, I don't know, it facilitates, or that's why it's conjuring up these ideas and thoughts of just like, now I could see that this is why it was recommended. Like I said, it's a felt sense when you're in it. When you're well into it, it makes more sense when you're in it. It's kind of difficult to really not transmit, but infer the true experience of what it's actually like, unless you're actually doing it. So it goes back to the whole notion of like religion. I mean, a lot of religion it's all about like, you're following along with what someone else experienced, and then you're just supposed to just copy it, but you're not actually experiencing yourself firsthand. It's like the people that wrote the different scriptures of various religions, like they directly experienced stuff and wrote it down, and now you're just following something based on what they wrote and their experience. And I just personally don't believe that is the correct way to have a religious experience for yourself. That religious experience must be experienced firsthand, period. Like, end of sentence. Like, just having somebody else tell you about a religious experience, and then you're just kind of, it's like, it just seems so cheap. I don't know, that might be offensive to some people, but it's like, once you've had true firsthand religious type experiences, I can't understand how you could just sit there and listen to somebody just preach to you a sermon about some book that they didn't experience any of it. They've never had an actual religious experience, yet they're like acting like they're the expert. I just find it just so hypocritical and fake, and not at the source. It's just like, you're getting, it's a total heresy, not heresy, but like hearsay. It's like, this person is telling you about this person, is telling you about this person, and then that, a few people down the line is now telling you, what that was like. It's like, that's not possible. Like, just go to the damn source. So that's all I'm saying. So part of doing this fasting is about like going to the source. So, but But yeah, so I think that's the main thing I would say. So yeah, so 7 days down, 33 to go. So, well, 33 is starting to get down to a month. I think once I break down, get past day 10, then it'll definitely officially be like less than a month to go. So then, yeah. But 1 week, it's a big accomplishment. I feel very good about that. And, I think the next big milestone is the 10-day mark. 10-day mark, and then like the 14-day mark, 15-day mark, that kind of, and then, yeah, I'd say, at this point, the 7 days is though a key marker because it's like a full week is significant because a lot of people do a longer fast and then they drop out after day 5. So once officially past day 5, 2 days past 5, then that's definitely a good sign. And overall, my feelings of hunger and stuff are pretty under control. Like I feel little sensations going on occasionally, but my feeling of dedication and willingness to stay on track is feels far greater than any of those little feelings that pop up. I just dismiss them. I'm just like, oh, it's some little feeling that's going on, not relevant, so that's just got to keep that perspective. Don't let your don't let your hunger and stomach be the master of you. Be instead, learn to get the discipline and just be the master of, over those hunger feelings and just be like, I can override them. Even though in the beginning it's way different. It's like your willingness and the feeling of hunger almost seem like a match, like a head-to-head level. But over time, it becomes less and less and less until it's minor. Then you can handle it. You should be able to handle it as long as you know why you're doing it and you're dedicated. Then you can overcome it. So, all right, till next one. See ya.